Yeah. Good evening, dear members and friends, and a warm welcome to one and all. It's so good to see so many of us here today to celebrate Madras Day. It's an honor indeed. So, before we start the proceedings, we'd like to have our Kutuvalak, the lighting of the Kutuvalak. So, yeah, we'd like to invite Uma Muthusamy and Sudha Suresh and Kala and Anita Prasad and Parvati Balasubramanya. These are our members. I wouldn't like to say the oldest members. I would like to say the members who've been there probably from our inception. Yeah, exactly. And there are many more. So, with us today. Prema, you also can come.
Beautiful. It's lovely to see everybody in the Madras drapes.
Yeah.
Remove the mask for a minute. Okay? For a minute. Yeah. Uma, hold on. खत्म होने दो, फिर एक।
Thank you. Ladies, please stay back for a photograph. And thank you so much. Thank you, ladies. May we all rise for the Tamil Thai Vartha, please. Kiran, can you please play the Tamil Thai Vartha?
நீராறும் கடலுடுத்த நிலமடந்தை கெழிலொழுகும் சீராறும் மதனமென திகழ்பரத கண்டனிதில் எக்கணமும் அதில் சிறந்த திராவிடனல் திருநாடும் தக்க சிறு பிறை நுதலும் தரித்தனரும் திலகமுமே அத்தில சீரக வாசனை போல் அனைத்துலகும் இன்பமுற எத்திசையும் புகழ் மணக்க இருந்த பெரும் தமிழனங்கே தமிழனங்கே உன் சீரிழமை திறம் வியந்து செயல் மறந்து வாழ்த்துதுமே வாழ்த்துதுமே வாழ்த்துதுமே.
Thank you. Please be seated. The Duchess Club would like to extend our heartiest congratulations to our esteemed guests, Manohar, Devadoss, and Sujatha Shankar, for a fabulous launch of their book, Madras Inked Impressions of an Artist and an Architect, in the presence of Governor Banwari Lal Purohit on the 19th of this month. We wish you good luck and a lot of success. Now I'd like to invite our President Neena Reddy to give the welcome address.
Vanakkam and good evening to everyone. I can't tell you how excited I'm feeling. You know, I can't imagine that we're actually here in flesh and blood and hugging and smiling at each other. I think it's so beautiful. I hope this becomes the new normal once again, you know. So welcome to the esteemed guests for today, Sujatha, Manohar ji, and of course, Sriram. So glad to have you all here with us today. I can't think of a better way of celebrating Madras Day. Somehow, Savera has always been associated with Madras Day, right, Sriram? And we think of different concepts. I think there was one year we did making of old type of Mysore Pak with Chandri ma'am at Malgudi. I think that was the beginning, I think. You know, all of us became mommies that day. And after that, I think it has been a nice quiz with Sushi Natraj. Sushi, do you remember? I think that was one of the first meetings that you had. And of course, we had many with Cinema Rendezvous. We had Saukar Janaki coming, and then we had Lakshmi, many meetings with her. And we had Suhasini once, we had Shivashankari. So we think of different ways of celebrating. And thank you to the committee who organized the Madras Day celebrations for letting us be your guests also, yeah, for being your hosts. Thank you so much. Today I actually hijacked Sujatha Shankar from a Sanskritam class. So she's my classmate there. We have actually been very busy ladies. I'm sure all of you have also. But I like to boast that I have been like really busy. It's been learning bhajans from Kala. It started off like that last May. And then after that it was into Sanskritam. And then we've become actually addicts at it. You won't believe it. Today we finished all our classes and we are here. Right, teachers? Yeah? So it's fun because I think before that we did not really get time to ourselves, you know, to introspect and to create that time for ourselves. So in one way, I think we're making use of our lockdown days very much. So when Sujatha mentioned at one of her classes that she was writing this book and with this fantastic personality, right? So I couldn't say, I had to get it to Duchess Club, yeah? I think we planned it about 6 months back, Sujatha. I think sometime in December you said we were going to launch it. So somewhere around that time. So we were just waiting for a right opportunity. And when things opened up, I said, this is it. So we're going to meet, and that's how Sujatha is here. So thank you for being with us today. And what a fantastic launch you all had that day. Fantastic. So we have a new benchmark to meet, right? But we will do it in our own style, yeah? But with a lot of warmth and love. Right? So thank you again to everyone for being here. And Duchess, love you all ladies.
Thank you, Neena. Such a befitting welcome address and so apt for the occasion. Now I'd like to invite our Duchess Club member, Asha Sampath. Probably no, before that, I'd like to invite our guests on stage, please. A round of applause, ladies.
Can you zoom out, Kiran, so that we can see the guests?
I'd like to call Aparna Bubna,
Do you want it to?
Neeta Rathod, and Kirti to please come here and present the guests, our esteemed guests, with mementos. And also invite Asha. Once this is done, we can start with the introduction, formal introduction. So Asha, we're all waiting for the lovely introduction. Please to come.
Namaskaram and Vanakkam. Thank you so much, Anu. It is said that legends walk amongst us, but then it's very rare that you rub shoulders with such great people. Today, with much thanks to the Duchess 5, we have not one, not two, but 3 such legends of the city. How cool is that? So you can all imagine the feelings that run through me at this point in time. I'm overwhelmed, I'm honored, I'm privileged, and I'm totally humbled, all rolled into one. Thank you once again, Duchess 5, for this wonderful golden opportunity. I shall treasure it always. I shall start with the introduction of the authors of this fabulous book. You know, without reading it, I'm calling it fabulous because the very name, Madras Inked, that makes me feel like grabbing the book and just reading it, you know. And I must say that all 3 of them are united in their deep passion commitment and dedication to bringing out the heritage of our beautiful, beloved city. Madras, Nalla Madras, Chennai, Namma Chennai. So, the very first gentleman I'd like to introduce, the author, Sri Manohar Devadoss. What can I tell about him? He is a renowned artist of our beautiful city. He has 60 years behind him as an artist. You heard me right, 6 decades. How wonderful is that? And experts say that his drawings pinpoint the finest details and they have perfect proportions. No wonder he was awarded the Bharat Ratna last year. So please applaud. He is already a legend amidst us, isn't he? In spite of his failing vision, he continued to pursue his passion until complete vision impairment overtook him. He has authored 7 books, and I must also tell you that he is actually a person of science, and during his working years, he was in the scientific field. But he continued to draw also. Great combination, don't you think? Among his many charitable acts, one that stands out is he created inked drawings for the heritage greeting cards for charity, and the proceeds of those cards were donated to charitable institutions. I was fortunate enough to witness over Zoom, of course, the unveiling and the launch of the book by our Honorable Governor, Shri Banwari Lal Purohit, on Thursday. And what touched me was Shri Manohar Devadoss's words when he said, he concluded with this sentence, I am 85 years old, I live alone, but I live happily. Happily. Ladies and gentlemen, I think he deserves an applause. What an inspiring story. What an inspiring gentleman. Sir, my salute and my humble pranams to you. I am so privileged to be introducing you to this wonderful audience this evening. Co-author Srimati Sujatha Shankar is not only my friend, but also my Sanskritam classmate. So Sujatha Bhagini, it gives me immense pleasure to be introducing you to the audience today. Sujatha is down to earth and humble. That comes from my personal interactions with her. But going on to who she really is, she is a very well-known architect of our Madras, Nalla Madras, Chennai, Namma Chennai. And she is so passionate about Chennai's heritage that she directed 2 documentaries on Madras city. How many of you know that? I didn't know it until I read her bio. And she is also the person who created a heritage map of the city. She deserves an applause. Come on. Sujatha has won prestigious national award for her design, and she has also been in many committees related to architecture. Currently, she is in the executive committee of INTAC. For those of you who do not know what INTAC is, here goes. Indian National Trust for Art and Cultural Heritage. Sujatha, am I correct? Thank you. She is also the convener of the Chennai chapter. And I must tell you that because of her, I was able to share a story for the children of our corporation schools about Madras and its landmarks from a book called Off We Go to Chennai. So thank you very much, Sujatha, for that opportunity. And again, I am so happy to have been able to introduce you to this audience. Last but not the least, the gentleman who will be leading the conversation today. Who doesn't know Sriram Venkata Krishnan? Thank you so much for being here, Sriram. Well, we all know him as the guy who pioneered the heritage walks in Chennai. Way back in 1999, Mylapore was it? I have had the privilege of being with him on a heritage tour, and the way the words roll out of his mouth like smooth like butter. The stories, the facts, the details. Tamil சொன்னனும் அதை because I cannot translate this exactly in English. அப்படியே சென்னையை கரைச்சி குடிச்சிருக்கார். There is nothing that he does not know about Chennai. He deserves an applause. Come on. How many of you know that he is also a music historian? His old friends will. I didn't know until I read his bio. He is also a columnist. Yes, that I know because I read his columns in the Hindu. He has a blog called Madras Heritage and Carnatic Music. Correct? Yeah. And he has authored so many books. What else can I tell about a man who wears so many hats? I can't wait to see him chat with Shri Manohar and Srimati Sujatha. So without further ado, and once again thank you for the opportunity, Duchess V. Thank you so much. I am really privileged to be introducing you also to the audience. I hand the mic over back to Anuradha Sachdev. Thank you very much, everybody. Vanakkam.
Thank you, Asha. I think we need to give you a round of applause. You were absolutely our storyteller, Asha Sampath. Thank you, Asha. And ladies, now sit back and enjoy an interesting, informative, and engaging conversation by the dynamic trio on stage on the occasion of Madras Day celebrations. Over to you, Sriram. The floor is yours.
Good evening, duchesses and the few dukes whom I see in the audience. Great pleasure to be here on Madras Day, for Madras Day celebrations. And thank you, Nina. I can't see where you are at this point of time, but there you are at the back. I think Madras Week celebrations are incomplete without your involvement. I can still remember 2005 when we first established contact, and since then, practically every year, as you rightly pointed out, Savera has been a very important feature of the Madras Week celebrations. I'll also not forget the Golden Jubilee of the hotel when you and Shailaja put up a skit for the benefit of the members talking about the history of the place. So thank you very much, and thanks to everybody for being here this evening. Before I begin, I'd like to recognize the presence of Mr. K.R.A. Narasaya, one of the best-known historians today of the city, who worked very closely with Mr. Muttaya in bringing out the book on the Madras Port Trust. And after a very distinguished career in the Navy, he then came back to Madras, and then he became very involved with the history of the city. And since he's one of the people who has given a citation on this book, we'd like to hand over a copy of the book to him today. Sir, if you would please come here. And so we get into the question-answer sessions without further ado. I received this book a couple of weeks ago, and I was simply stunned by the way it had been produced. I, of course, knew about the limitless talents of both Mano and Sujatha in their respective fields, having worked with them fairly closely over several years. And Mano and Mano's dear wife Mahima, unforgettable. I think I first met them sometime in 1999 or 2000, and since then they have been my dearest friends. And Mr. Muttaya, my guru and the editor of Madras Musings, used to always refer to Mano and Mahima in the most glowing of terms. And every year their greeting card project would get first page mention in Madras Musings without fail. And Sujatha, whom I have always privately labeled as the queen of aesthetics. There can be no greater tribute to her, the quality of her work when it comes to architecture, when it comes to how everything has to be just so. And that all of that has manifested itself in this wonderful book, Madras Inked. And as in all projects of Mano, as the proceeds go to charity, I always request that everybody should buy this book and contribute to society in their own way. And certainly it will be a very worthwhile addition to your libraries, and it will be something that you will look forward to at all times, to just pick up a page or two and read, or perhaps read the whole thing down from cover to cover. So Sujatha, starting with you, how did the idea of this book really come about, and how did you begin?
Like I mentioned the other day, I think I go back to my student days when one day I received a New Year greeting card and opened it and was thoroughly stunned. I think people of my vintage here will remember the joy of, receiving a physical New Year card with a stamp and a handwritten address, opening the cover and to discover what was within. Here was a card that was just unparalleled. The sketch had beautiful lines. I know everybody's spoken about his talent, Mr. Manohar Devadoss's, but the kind of lines that were there, the composition, what was there and what was not there, the balance between the two, the proportions, just absolutely everything in it was just perfect. And it remained a memory that I always cherish. And to this day, I can't forget that moment. And I've saved that card. It's something that, it's a moment to cherish. And then life went on, and I was, of course, I used to see his cards every year, which were all for charity, each one more beautiful than the other. And then more recently, I think that was in 2014, there was a launch of his book on perspective. And in that function, I sort of looked at the drawings in the book, although I had seen all his greeting cards, and I used to meet him and Mahima quite often. This book was fascinating, and it had sketches of both Madurai and of Madras. And then I, of course, know about his book, Multiple Facets of My Madurai. And that had got rave reviews and a beautiful tome of its own. Now that left me wondering, why can't we do one on Madras? And it was this very, very casual suggestion to him, mentioned to him. He says that I suggested it. Somehow it came out of a casual conversation. And we said we must bring this out. Of course, it's been a long time coming, but it was absolutely joyous to work on that.
Thank you, Sujatha. Mano, my question is now to you. We have all, seen your drawings over the years. But would you like to share with the audience what first got you started on sketching the buildings of Madras, and which was the first building that you took up? And a little bit of your experience. You've got a mic in your hand, Mano.
After I came to Madras to take up a job in a company as a research scientist, my British boss, I did not do the heritage building, but my British boss wanted me to do a drawing. Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? So my British boss in his bass voice said, Devadoss, I did not know you are an artist. 2, will you do a drawing for me of Madras fishermen with their catamarans? So that was the first drawing I did on Madras in 1959. Then I was always fascinated by the Indo-Saracenic buildings in Madras, and I started sketching them. My wife is a gold medalist in fine art, and she suggested we should come out annually with heritage greeting cards, with for charity, with my drawing in the front and inside her crisp text. And we were very happy. These cards were very successful. As Sriram said, Muttiah was very supportive, and many persons were very supportive. And people bought these cards partly because it went for charity. And after 9 years of married life, my wife, after a car accident, became paralyzed neck down. She regained her use of her shoulder muscle. Even using her shoulder muscle, she used to draw. She is such a spirited person, and she accepted her condition, and we continued with the greeting card project for, and I am myself surprised, for 42 years we did it. And what more, when I did the artwork, because I was full-time employed, and my salary, because she was in a wheelchair, and there was a lot of expenses, and my job became very important, so I had to work very hard in the company. And during my spare time, I was doing the artwork. And what about reading? I love reading. And Mahima completely rechanged her schedule and sat very close to me so that her voice won't be strained. And she read book after book after book while I drew. And one of the things I have to say is Sriram's Carnatic Summer, she read 3 times. And I made day after day after day after day. In the night time, she used to read till about 11:30, and to put her to bed itself is a very complex process because she should not get, bed sores. She lived for, after the accident, she lived for 35 years, and many patients in hospitals get bed sores, but for 35 years, she did not even have a suggestion of a bed sore. She was a very spirited person, and she continued to do the service. So we led a very happy life. And then Sujatha patronized our cards, and we came to know her and we liked her very much. And then, as she said, my book on perspective, how I learnt about perspective, I did not read any books because I possibly, I shouldn't say it, but because I have a scientific mind, I solve the problems of perspective myself. And so Sujatha patronized our card and she became a good friend of ours. And then when I wrote my 7th book on perspective, I requested her to, formally, what is the word? Sujatha? Formally release the book. Yeah, formally release the book, which she did. And then, as she said, I wrote 2 books on Madurai, and the drawings I made was specifically for the books. But Madras, she thought, why don't we come with a book on Madras? You have so many drawings of Madras. But then the drawings of Madras I did for various reasons. For the greeting cards, for art galleries, and for cover story for magazines, and illustrations for articles and so on. And they were all in different shapes and different sizes. And Sujatha disciplined them all and brought them into the right size and made it so, and some of the pictures had become dirty also. And she cleaned all that and did such a fantastic job. Then when she suggested that, I readily agreed. But what I realized was my contribution was only giving her, searching and finding out whatever copies I had or originals I had and giving it to her. But almost all the rest of the work was done by her. And I was deeply, deeply impressed by the thoroughness with which she dealt with each and every drawing. She took meticulous care and she unearthed very interesting information which is not normally often known. But even more importantly, she gave such great importance for factual accuracy. Just to give a light-hearted example, if I draw a picture with a tree, she will send a botanist to find out the name of the tree. That kind of a thoroughness she followed. So there were a lot of delays, but then finally the book has come, and so beautifully what is as Sujatha or someone said, my daughter is far away, I am alone, I am going to be 85 soon, and because of the love and support and affection that people have, that at least some of my creative candles are aglow brighter than before. So I thank you all for that, and I am happy that the money goes for charity, and so I'm able to be, doing that kind of a thing now, and I feel very blessed that Sujatha and I did this book, and I have great admiration for her. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Manu. Thank you so much. Sujatha, I think since you've spoken about the book and then Manu has spoken about his drawings, maybe we must have some reading out of at least one page, and maybe if the drawing can itself be displayed on screen, it will be very good. Would you like to read from here?
Yeah. This is the Bharat Insurance building, and it's one of my absolute favorites and has found a place on the cover as well. The reason is that it is Indo-Saracenic, but it's really Indo-Saracenic gone wild. It's somebody's imagination that sort of, just flowed along, and it doesn't follow any, great norms that some of the other stately buildings do. But this is absolutely magnificent. It also represents hope for me, because we've lost so many heritage structures in the city, and here is one that still stands in a derelict state, in a poor state of protection. It has a little green cloth sort of protecting it, but in a very poor state, and one just hopes that the owners will, take cognizance of it and bring it back to life. It is in that hope that I picked this for today. So just a little bit about the building. This is called the Cardil building. Cardil building, designed by J.H. Stephens and inaugurated in 1897, had the insignia Chemists and Druggists emblazoned on its facade, reflecting the business of the owners, W.E. Smith & Co., a leading pharmaceutical company, standing tall with towers, domes and spires on a trapezoidal site at the corner of Mount Road and General Patters Road. Its vantage location creates a vast foreground to perceive the stunning beauty of this eclectic building. Striking in its appearance, it has been described in the newspaper when it was inaugurated, actually, I open quotes, forming a handsome and imposing monumental pile, close quotes. It is an architectural amalgam of many elements in a unique medley of styles. On the skyline, one can see triangular pediments, stepped gables, slim spires with conical caps, bas-reliefs, brackets and apertures in the parapet. All the heterogeneous elements lending it an absolutely magical quality. Essentially double-storied, the red brick structure has 2 floors. The building was designed with a large exhibition hall on the ground floor for the display of, again open quotes, goods connected with the pharmacy, surgery and the toilet, close quotes. The upper floor was planned as rooms for doctors, dentists, opticians, pharmacy and laboratory, staff quarters, a cafe and a beer bar. W.E. Smith's famous aerated water, Cardil prickly heat powder, and CAQ, a cinnamon, ammonia and quinine mixture for colds, and several other medicines were at once household names. The pharma business of W.E. Smith passed into the hands of Spencer's in 1925, and a few years later, the building was taken over by Bharat Insurance. The Life Insurance Corporation of India became the owners of the building after the business of insurance was nationalized in 1957. It is a fond hope that the owners will, as they did with their property in Calcutta, restore the splendid heritage icon of Madras to its past glory.
I now request Sujatha's son Abhinav to read out the corresponding text on the same building as written by Mano in this book.
Good evening. To quote Mr. Mano on the Bharat Insurance building, I was one of the artists whom Sharan Apparao invited to contribute artwork for the annual Our Madras art exhibition that she held in the late 1980s at the gallery. I went around Madras choosing appropriate topics for my ink drawings. Am I audible now? Yeah. Sorry. Apologies, I'll go from the top again. To quote Mr. Manohar, on the Bharat Insurance building. I was one of the artists whom Sharon Apparao invited to contribute artwork for the annual Our Madras art exhibition that she held in the late 1980s at the gallery. I went around Madras choosing appropriate topics for my ink drawings. I was struck by the Bharat Insurance building. It had a conglomeration of styles, and yet the edifice did not present an incongruous appearance. It seemed an interesting subject for artwork. So, I did 2 ink drawings of it for 2 consecutive annual art shows, which drew appreciative responses like, to quote, inimitable style of Manohar Devadoss in the print media. Sujatha Shankar liked the drawing so much that she chose one of these as the cover picture of this book with my enthusiastic assent. To quote Mr. Narsaya from his foreword, the sheer beauty of the cover, designed by Sujatha with Manohar's drawing, tells all. The Cardil building, later Bharat Insurance building, transformed from black and white to white and black, narrates the story of the city's metamorphosis. Thank you.
Thank you, Abhinav. Yeah, please. You'll come back.
Is the cover there? Is the cover there? I just also want to add here that one day we were, Mr. Manohar and I were just discussing the title of the book, and
you're jumping a question.
So we had something about Madras, and the word inked was added by a friend of mine who had just dropped in for a chat, and she was patiently listening to Mr. Manohar and I discussing and talking about the book and reading some script, etc. She was just sitting there patiently, and then she said, instead of Madras, impressions of an artist and an architect, why don't you add the word inked? And so that's how the title came to be. So it was just one of those little suggestions by a friend, school classmate, Mary.
Oh, it was Mary's idea.
Yeah.
Oh, very good. Now we know who was behind the whole thing. Just to, I sadly do not share Sujatha's hope about this building at all, because the High Court very clearly said that the building cannot be demolished. But what was not said was that the building had to be restored. So the current owners have not demolished the building. That's it. They have left it without a roof, and they are hoping that it will fall down one day all by itself. So then, it's a fait accompli. The building doesn't exist any longer. They did their best to not demolish it. But then nature, weather, etc., all these things take a toll, and then the building eventually vanishes. So the chairman of the company, he began coming to the December music season of the Music Academy very regularly. And then somebody pointed out to him that Sriram is also here, he wants to have a word with you. After that, he never came to the Music Academy even once. So that was the end of the story. Anyway.
But I still live in hope.
Yeah,
I'm
she's
seriously
very positive
hoping
minded.
that
She's
it
very
will
positive
live.
minded. Anyway, now I have a question for Mano. Mano, you can, I'll give you your mic, just a minute. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to snatch your mic or something, but I was told that I'll have to switch it off, which is why I took it from you. Here you are. My question, Mano, was, Sujatha spoke about perspective. And in 2008, when my book on historic residences came out, and Sujatha and I were having a conversation about it, and she said that, it's nice, but there's one thing that the perspective of many of the buildings is faulty. And then I asked her, who is really, in your idea, in your view, who is perfect as far as perspective is concerned? This was in 2008 and we are now in 2021. And Sujatha immediately said Manohar Devadoss. I'll never forget that remark that she made over the phone. And so my question to you, Mano, is what brought this perspective? You just mentioned it in brief in your opening remarks when you said that, you have a scientific mind, so you worked on it. But how did you really get this idea of perspective which eludes so many people?
Okay. I went to a very simple school in Madurai, a Tamil medium school of middle class people, and none of my classmates, are you able to hear me? Yeah? You are able to hear me? Yeah, okay. And none of my classmates had been to Madras, and I was explaining to them about the electric commuter train, and my friends would not accept it. So I wanted to do a drawing of the train with the wire on top and the thing touching it, and I was not able to do it. Then when I came to Madras, my uncle had a photograph, and I took the photograph and stuck it on a paper and continued the talk. I realized that the lines were not parallel. The real lines which are parallel was not parallel in the photograph. So I took a pen and very accurately drew the various lines, and I was astounded to find that all the lines met at one point. Then when I told my uncle, he said, oh, it's called the vanishing point. So I found out a vanishing point even before knowing its name. I was in 6th standard in school. That was the beginning. I have to, now I want to totally digress and say something else which I forgot to tell before. Sriram read about our greeting cards and spoke to my wife. And hearing her voice, he expected to see a young girl with a vibrant voice. But when he went there, she saw a 52-year-old woman sitting in a wheelchair. He was taken aback. And I have to say, my wife and Sriram became great friends before I even met Sriram. And till Mahima passed away, Sriram was closer to Mahima than to me.
Just to add a little bit to the Mahima Devadoss and B. Sriram romance story, the thing is that Mahima was reading Carnatic Summer to Mano, as he said. So every once in a while I'll get a call from her and she'll say, "Yedukuppa ipdi இந்த பழனி சுப்பிரமணிய பிள்ளை இப்படி பண்ணினாரு," etc. About some character in the book. I'd say, Mahima, what can I do about it? This man died so many years ago. Oh, these people were so evil. So everything, she would analyze. What was very touching in the end was that when Mano wrote his book on Madurai, and then I happened to do a review of it. And Mahima sent a handwritten letter. For her, that was a huge effort to actually sit and write a letter. And she autographed it also. And then she sent it to me. And I kept the letter for a very long time. And when she passed away, Mano asked for a copy of the letter. And then I said, Mano, I think it's important that you have the original. So I keep a photocopy, he has the original. And the autograph was reproduced in the entrance of their house in a plaque. Correct, Mano?
Yes, because I renamed the house Mahima, and that was the last time she signed. By that time, that her health has waned and her handwriting was not very steady. So, there are much better signatures, but this had, historic significance because that was the last time she signed. What she signed the last time was to him, and he gave the original letter, and I named the house and used it in the plaque in front. That signature, if you come to my house, you can see that signature there.
Sujatha, Mano, you have something to say, or should I?
Just one more
please,
thing to say.
Please.
I told you that my wife sat close to me and read books to me. I made an estimate of how many hours she read. A very conservative estimate is she would have read to me for 5,000 hours.
Sujatha, yeah, sure.
Just on this note, there was something I wanted to say about both of them, Mahe and Mano.
On the mic, Sujatha, because they didn't hear what you said.
Sorry. On this note, there was something I just wanted to read out about Mahe and Mano, and just a few lines. This was written by Dr. Geeta Ravi as a foreword for his recent book called Mahe and Mano, and I just read those few lines. Creation shields within its coffers not only the rarest of stones like diamonds, but precious gems of human beings. Among those rarest of gems are Mahe and Mano, and the story of their eventful life amidst ordeals is sure to enter into the annals of Madras. If one desires to learn the art of living, loving and giving with grace, a reference to the lives of Mahe Mano is mandatory. Their indomitable will helped them metamorphose the twin challenges, the failing vision of Mano and the quadriplegia of Mahe, into a life of ebullience, fellowship, benevolence and creativity. From their book of life, there are lessons to cherish.
So, Sujatha, how did you work on the book, the two of you? What was the process? Because it was quite a while in its creation, and I remember Mr. Muthaiya throwing up his hands in exasperation and saying, as and when the book comes out, Appa. So, I remember that at the Madras Literary Society. So, I'd like to know what was the process and how you worked on the book.
It was fairly informal, the way we collaborated. First of all, it was amazing to work with him because we would talk on the phone, and then sometimes we would meet in his house or in my house and then plan how the book would come about, both in terms of layout as well as in terms of the content. And we hit upon the fact that we will use drawings on the left side and the script on the right side, which is basically the format that the book has followed. And being an architect, I think I was, sort of inclined to do a square book, and that's what it is. And, on the left, there were buildings for which he had made more than one drawing, in which case there would be one on the left side with my text on it, and then there would be another drawing with his little anecdote on it. His anecdotes are actually like, in these films you have this, how the film was made and behind the scenes. So that's how his anecdotes turn out. So that's how that happened. If there was only one drawing, then we used a grey tone of the sketch itself on his, aside his note. And there are buildings like the Senate House and the High Court where he has 4 and 5 drawings. And then we made like a center spread with multiple drawings. You'll see all of that when you see the book. But in terms of how it came about, I had to juggle my time with my being a full-time working person. And along with that, I also do my work voluntarily for INTAC. So all of that, and of course, housework and whatever is associated with the family, building homes for people, of course.
Some people whom we know who are in the hall.
Yes. So all of that, trying to juggle was quite a bit of a challenge. And usually I would sit at night, and many times on travel, and I worked in several libraries wherever I traveled. And that was a very peaceful part of the, work when it came about. And even here, Madras Club Library or Anna University Library, I've spent adequate time in those places. And it would shape up, and then we would go out for some functions sometimes, whether it was a concert or a play. He'd love to go to a play by Madras players. So that was a very frequent outing. And in the intervals, we would discuss how we can, improve the book or what we can do. And many times it was in the car. It was really informal. I find it hard to explain how we put it together. So that's how we collaborated. And many times, ferreting out information took time. There were people who were stakeholders of the buildings, be it the owners or be it people associated with those buildings, if they were public buildings, from whom I was trying to get some nuggets of information. Of course, a lot has been written by so many people before me, including Mr. Muttaya, who's been a great inspiration. And in addition to that, I tried to get some additional information. For example, the River House, that is the house belonging to the US Consul General. Now, everywhere it was mentioned that it was the second largest building in India, belonging to the US, consulate, after Roosevelt House in Delhi. But there was no mention of the architect anywhere. And then later I discovered that Mr. Muttaya has been trying to find it as well. Then I wrote to them, and they were kind enough to first search all their files here. They could not find the name. They of course, the name of the person who did the building at the Gemini, the US, what was the USIS at that point, that was very clear, but the River House was elusive. So then they were kind enough to actually write to the US State Department in the Pentagon, and imagine that's how I got the information. So it was a firm in Little Rock, Arkansas, and that firm has survived for about 150 years. It was Carter, Cromwell, Nayland. It was a firm that metamorphosed by changing of partners, and it still exists. One day I hope to write to them about this. But that was amazing to, get that little piece of information. And Lauren Lovelace, who helped me find the information, she said, please share it with Mr. Muttaya. He was traveling at that point, and he was rather delighted to get the information. So little pieces like that took some time, but joyous. I'm sure anybody who's writing a book has these little moments of joy, but these were my moments of joy. And similarly, Guindy Engineering. A college as important as Guindy Engineering did not know who their architect was. And I had contacted the professors, I had contacted the dean. I referred to 2 books, one called A Journey in Time, and then another one written by Mr. Kupuraj, who's an engineer who was, one of their engineer historians, after H.D. Love, who wrote those seminal volumes on the history of Madras from 1600 to 1800. This was a gentleman who had really delved into the history of the Guindy Engineering College. Not the Guindy Engineering, but the College of Engineering. Then I went through both those books, and there was a mention of a person called James as the architect of the Guindy Engineering College, and I found that on the internet also there were 2-3 mentions of Mr. James. Then it turns out that the reference is more like, Nehru is the architect of India, that sort of a reference. He was not the architect, meaning not the profession of architecture. So then I delved further, and I came across this PhD thesis by a lady called Anne Shanti. And there was a mention of, her focus was on colonial buildings. And there was a mention about this building as well. So I tried to get her number, which I did. And then I tried reaching her. Poor thing, she had passed away before even her PhD had been submitted. And she had received it posthumously. And then I got through to her professor and her guide, and then reached out to the archival references with the GOs, and then really confirmed that it was W.H. Nichols. Yeah, and another person who's named just. So 2 people, one of whom goes on to become part of the brilliant team of architects who worked on the plan of Delhi with Lutyens and Baker. So these little pieces of information were absolutely joyous to find. So that was part of making the book.
Nichols himself was involved with Delhi. Connaught Place, I think, was largely his work. Yeah. Mano, the next question. One of the big takeaways from that book release event was the process by which you drew Cottingley. I was just stunned when Sujatha described to me what you did when you had to sketch Cottingley, the British Deputy High Commissioner's residence in Nungambakam. Could you share your experience of that?
Can you hear me? Okay. The person who brought me here, Joan, played a very vital role. At that time, I was not at all, I was very reluctant to do the drawing because Cottingley is a wide spread out building, and I had a very narrow cone of vision in one eye and no vision in the other. But the wife was very insistent, wife of the Deputy High Commissioner. So Mahima said we will try. So Mahima, Joan and I went early in the morning, and so at that time my vision was better, and Mahima chose the place from which I should draw, and Joan patiently explained the details. We took a paper and folded the paper wherever the building had corners, and she took me and I felt with my hand the shapes and the thing wherever possible. So partly with Mahima's explanation and partly with the greater explanation by Joan, we had to go 2 times, and then partly with what little I saw, I decided before my memory elapses, I should do a drawing because I had the knowledge in perspective. I did a drawing in pencil. Mahima had to lie down, she cannot sit too long to avoid bed sores. So when she sat up in the evening, when she saw the sketch, she was stunned. She said, "Oh Mano, you didn't even see it properly. How did you draw Cottingley?" So I was happy that I drew it in a recognizable way. What happened was, I sent that drawing to Dr. Venkata of Aravinda Hospital. I don't know why I sent it to him, but I sent it to him, explaining to him, because he was an eye doctor. And I sent a copy to Joan. And it was Joan who preserved it, and it was Joan who wrote as an epilogue to the book on perspective and how I did the drawing. Then Joan took many photographs and she printed them on paper, and I could see them well. So another friend, an engineer, did with ink with the lines, because I understood the building already, and with Joan's pictures and my knowledge and Mahima's help, I did the final drawing. So both the drawings were published in the book in an epilogue by Joan. The one I did with pencil before, and then the one I did the final drawing. So that I had forgotten all about it, and it was Joan who wrote it in the epilogue.
Thank you very much, Mano, for that. It was almost like, for us, it was like an understanding of how Beethoven composed. Yeah. You know, it just didn't matter. You had it all in your head and you brought it out. It was just fabulous.
It's almost like he could see with his mind's eye. That's right. How it is.
Yeah. So Sujatha, before we have the last reading and I ask the audience for their questions, a question to you. What do you think was the purpose or the aim that you wanted to achieve by taking up, all of us are engineers here in one way or the other, so aim, apparatus required, and procedure and all that, that's what we are used to. So, what was the...
Basically to create awareness of heritage, which is one of our passions, I suppose. And, I thank Mr. Muthaiya also for that, because he was the one that brought to life the local history. All of us, whether it's in school or college, we learn world history, we learn Indian history as if it belongs to somebody else. And, local history is given the go-by completely. And I met Mr. Muthaiya in the 80s. And since then, first as my in-laws' friend, so the interaction was minimal. But subsequently, when I made my first documentary in 1992, he was a huge mentor and guide. He, briefed me about so many buildings in Madras, and then his Madras Discovered was a big reference point. And I thoroughly enjoyed making that documentary about the evolution of architecture across the ages. So Mr. Muthaiya has a great role to play. And I think children today are missing the point if they don't know what's in their backyard. They learn about, even if you learn Indian history, you learn about the Mughals or you learn about something else, but divorced from what happened in your own neighborhood, which I think one of the purposes of this is it's really applicable for, this book is good for all ages, for whether you're young and in school or for older people who are going to be nostalgic and take a ride through Madras through these sketches and write-ups. So I'm hoping that the awareness of our heritage will spread. And the other thing is, there's buildings like the Great House in, inside Fort St. George, which is also called the Clive House, which has seen so many uses. It has been a court, it has been a town hall, it has been a residence where Clive lived in the early years of his marriage, and then it was used by the next Clive as for entertainment till Rajaji Hall was built as a banqueting hall. So it's seen all of these, and today it's the office of the Archaeological Survey of India. If a building like that can live for 300 years, which is built of brick and lime, which most of our heritage buildings are built, there is no reason why any of those should fall. In fact, being an architect myself, I don't have any qualms saying that those buildings are far better than anything any mason is putting up today, really. You may have great advancement in technology, but there's the love and care that has gone into every brick of those buildings. And there's no reason why they should not survive. It's very easy to write a single line report saying, something is leaking and this building is not destined to go on for longer. But it's only a matter of maintenance. Open and close the windows every day, the building breathes. Like you breathe, the building needs to breathe. And just regular maintenance, sweep and mop the place, maintain your terrace free of, leaves and whatever is going to block your rainwater downpipes. And there you are, you have a building which can go on for 300 years. So there are examples like that which really move me, and I think, those are lessons for all of us to say that, we have to keep our buildings going. And there's also the sad aspect that Spencer's is featured in this. Spencer's is gone today, but a lot of us have memories of such a beautiful building. Similarly, Moore Market, which is not in this building, is also a building that we've lost. So those are all, lessons for us to say that let us not do what we did to Spencer's and Moore Market. Let us keep, our heritage alive for our children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and so on. It's our duty. It's what we've inherited, and we are custodians of this heritage. And it's up to us to pass it on to the next generation.
Thank you, Sujatha. Uh, just by way of statistics, I think outside of Simla, Chennai is the second city of India to have lost the maximum number of heritage buildings to fire. I think 21 heritage buildings is the tally in the last count of structures that have mysteriously burnt in the night for no reason whatsoever, and then they are demolished later. It's become one of the very easy ways of getting rid of structures that you don't want any longer. It's a very sad statistic. I think we should have one more reading before we throw open to the audience for questions. What is the passage that you would like to...
I thought we'll do one on a temple. Yeah. So, I just thought I'll share a few lines about Tirunelmalai. Atop a promontory in a picturesque setting is the little temple of Ranganatha at Tirunelmalai, one of the 108 religious sites of Vaishnavism or Divyadeshams. It is located in Krompet in the vicinity of Pallavaram, the town of the Pallavas of considerable importance and antiquity. The temple complex is in two parts, one at the foothill and one above the hill, connected by steps. Said to have once been encircled by water, the name Tirunelmalai means sacred mountain surrounded by water. That Lord Vishnu is seen in 4 postures is a unique aspect of this temple. The deity is in a standing posture in a shrine at the base of the hill, and in lying, sitting, and walking postures in 3 shrines uphill, referred to as Nindran, Kidandan, Irundan, and Nadandan. The temple flourished as one of the centers of the Bhakti cult fostered by the Alvars, the Vaishnavite saints, in the revival of Hinduism in the 8th century as a counter to the rise of Buddhism and Jainism in South India. Tirumangai Alvar sang an entire padikam in praise of the temple in Periya Tirumuri, which forms a part of the Nalayara Divya Prabandham. Bhudat Alvar sang hymns in praise of the bigger village temple down the hill. Koti Kanyadanam Tatacharya, philosopher, poet, and royal guru of Venkata II, the Vijayanagar king, was a celebrated figure in a long line of preceptors, and according to an inscription, was the manager of the temple. Like his predecessors, he used his influence with the kings to get gifts of land and other grants for the temple. Epigraphs reveal details of royal patronage and philanthropy of Chola, Pandya, and Vijayanagar rulers, as well as by the Neela Gangarayans, who were liberal and influential chieftains. Now for Manu's portion.
Tirunelmalai. In December 1974, my Canadian friend Julian, who has an abiding interest in South Indian temple architecture, and his wife Betsy came to Madras to spend a few days with us. When we met, Julian said that as the plane approached Madras airport from the south, he fleetingly saw a temple tank and a hillock with a temple tower atop. I too had seen Tirunelmalai a few times from aircrafts, but had never visited the site. That very afternoon, Julian, Betsy, my primary school-going daughter Sujatha, and I went out to explore the region. From the arterial road, somewhere near Pallavaram, we took a road westward. This narrow road was lined on either side with leather-related units, a spillover from Krompet. Soon, the leather units faded out, and the road now presented old, quaint houses with tiled roofs and front verandas. Suddenly, the road opened out and we reached our picturesque destination. I parked the car near the temple tank. We wandered around. We went up the hill, saw the gopurams, the entrance hall, and from up there enjoyed the placid view of paddy fields extending far beyond the temple tank, with shrubbery and trees scattered all over. I decided to do an ink drawing of the temple gopuram sooner or later. Over the years, I visited the temple twice and finally created the ink drawing in 1992. Mahi and I came out with a greeting card of Tirunir Malai, specially for the enlightened eye institution, Shankar Netralaya. I wish to present here a couple of lines from the text that Mahima wrote, and I quote, "The temple is often favored by persons from Madras who preferred auspicious but unostentatious wedding ceremonies. The marriage of the well-known freedom fighter and intellectual T. Sadashivam to M.S. Subbulakshmi, India's most venerable classical singer, was solemnized in 1940 with a simple ceremony at this holy shrine." Close quote. We gifted 20 cards to the admirable couple. We were delighted to receive one of our own cards from them with a signed note. And I shall read what the note contained. "May God bless that wonderful couple, Manohar and Mahima, made for each other, and their darling daughter Sujatha, with uninterrupted happiness for many, many years to come. With lots of love and affection from signed T. Sadashivam, M.S. Subbulakshmi, 19th of November, 1992. Thank you.
Anuradha, if we have time, we'd like to have questions from the audience. Would you like to field it for us? You can have this mic.
Sushila. Sushi will be asking the question.
So much for a picture speaks 1,000 words. We had 1,000 words and we had the picture, so we had a double treat. Thank you both, Sujatha and Mano. That was absolutely out of this world. Thank you so much. And thanks, Sriram, for coordinating the whole thing, brought it together. My question, Sujatha, is to you. Particularly River House, you think the original drawings don't exist considering they're so hung up on maintaining records?
They actually couldn't find it here, and they'd searched all their records, and they seem to have, put away, I think they've renovated the building, and whenever that happens, records have a way of disappearing.
But they must have ownership records, no, somewhere?
Yes.
Otherwise we can claim the house back.
No, they have ownership. They have the,
No, I'm just saying.
No. The land was originally part of the large estate where, Demonte's estate of some 105 acres, of which Madras Club was carved out, which even had a golf course, originally.
Madras Club was Mowbray's, no?
It is all Demonte.
It's all Demonte.
The building is Demonte right up to Demonte Colony.
So, and it has been, Demonte did not have any children, so there is no way of selling those parcels of land except through court order. And this 5 acres was acquired by the United States Information Service, I think around 1960 or so, right? Around 1960.
Surely there are ownership papers that are...
They have ownership papers of the land, but the building, the name of the architect was not available, which they were able to trace from their papers in their, what they called the US State Department. In fact, they forwarded that original message from there with, attachments of... Thank you. And another happy coincidence was also that two of the buildings that I happened to restore in my architectural practice, I just found that Mr. Manohar had sketched it. That was, one was Cottingley, and the other was, what one can call morphed Indo-Saracenic becoming Indian, when Indian elements were adapted with monkey tops, as you'd call them, for the windows. That was a building in Purswakam, which we converted for a sweetmeat shop for Sri Krishna Sweets and a restaurant. So that was just an absolute happy coincidence.
We have a few questions on our virtual platform. I'll just put them on. Yeah?
Yes, there's a question. Anu, there's a question. How about this whole area of land on Harrington Road? Who did it belong to?
That question must be for Sriram.
Sriram, yeah.
Yeah.
Namberumal Chetty and etc.
Yes.
About Harrington Road, and who did those houses belong to?
There is a story that Namberimal owned 99 houses in Checkpet, but that is just a story. He may have owned 99 houses in Chennai, which is of course a much larger area. His granddaughter at the age of 101 is still alive, and she has a phenomenal memory, Panchali. And she said that there were only some 21 houses or something that he owned in Harrington Road, Chetpet, which I still think is a sizable number to rejoice over. And she could list the names of all the houses, beginning from the start of Harrington Road, going right up to the railway line. Faultless memory. Every house, and then when I asked her about something, she said, no, don't interrupt me. I don't remember that. That was definitely not part of my grandfather's property. So she knew every one of the houses. So all that was essentially Nambermal Chetty's properties, and other Arya Vaishya people. You know, in the old days you would refer to them as Komti Chettis, but today Arya Vaishya is the term that is preferred. And so on the other side also, and there were also lots of Nawabi properties in Harrington Road, which still exist towards the railway colony. And then, not the railway colony, I mean the railway line. And then we have Gilchrist Gardens, which was again a very large pocket belonging to Dr. S. Swaminathan, and then his descendants, including the famous Govind Swaminathan. The Nambermal properties, the only one that everybody talks about is Kreinant, which is his house, which still stands. And but fronting it, there are still several of his houses which are now occupied by other people.
Thank you. Sriram, there's another question for Mr. Manohar. That did he use reference images or photographs for the drawing?
Manu, question for you. Yeah. Did you use reference images and photographs for your drawings?
It depended upon what stage my vision was. Originally, when I started, I used, rotring pens became available, the German pens became available in Madras. And I used to, without even making a pencil sketch, I used to draw straight away. And I used to get the proportions right. Then when my vision started fading out, I started using a graph sheet and draw in pencil, and then come home and then do it. Then I also used simple trigonometry, algebra, and geometry to do drawings of photographic accuracy where the building does not exist. So things like that. But when it came to monuments, I used photographs as references. See, the limitation with photograph is if the range of light from the brightest to the darkest, if we say 100 units, a photograph will have only 30 units. Anything on the brighter side will all become white, on 30 side, and anything on this side will become completely black. So photographs, I cannot use photograph for including those details. So I used photographs only for getting the proportions of monuments. But houses and things like that, you know, I had the freedom to do. There may be small errors, but I didn't mind that. And natural scenes, you know, there's a lot of flexibility. So it depended upon the time. And later on, see, I kept using first, after I had a loss of vision in one eye and a cataract in the other. And after the cataract, unfortunately, the intraocular lenses were not available at that time. So, because I used the external lens, the image that fell in my retina was a little bigger. So that was an advantage for me. And I used plus 15, then plus 18, then plus 23, and then Badrinath made a worldwide search and found an Australian company making up to plus 27. And so I used plus 27 power for drawing and plus 16 power bifocal for looking at it at about 10 inches or 12 inches away. And because of this power glass, I was able to draw. Only thing is my face will be only about 4 inches from the paper when I drew it. And my wife sat next to me and she was very helpful. That's how I did it.
Anu, there's one more question here for Sujatha.
Yeah, that will be the last question, I think, Rati. We'll take it.
Okay. This question is directed to Sujatha. Is there any format you followed for the research behind this book?
The format is as informal as it can be. So it depended on each building and access to information. One had to, you know, sort of track down the owners. In many cases, it was possible to connect with them, and they were also extremely helpful. They were able to give me, for example, the Purswakam house, although I had designed it, I knew the architectural aspects of it, but the history of that residence, who were the owners, who were the previous owners, when was it built, and what were the features, and what was their, you know, sort of wish to do with that house, etc. I had to reconnect with those owners to get that information. Similarly for several of the buildings. There's a book on Madras, the architectural heritage that INTAC has brought out in 2003. That was also a big, you know, sort of a factor of guidance. In terms of research, I guess each building will speak for itself and say, this is what I need, and you have to go after it. So whether it's history, architecture, the name of the architect, the location, how was it acquired, was it, you know, were there Indian craftsmen who worked on it, even though the architect was British, you know, they could have directed it, but I think majority of these Indo-Saracenic buildings, credit has to be given to all the Indian craftsmen and the skill of their hands for the way it has come up.
Thank you, Sujatha.
Thank you.
Anu, quite a few of them wanted to know where the books are available, where they can buy the book.
Yeah. Today, of course, physically, the books are available here. Otherwise, they're available at the C.P. Ramaswamy Iyer Foundation, the people who published the book. And there is, I will give you a phone number. Jyotimani, what's your phone number? 96 775 31 229. You can contact this number. Otherwise, C.P. Ramaswamy Iyer Foundation is on Eldams Road. It's open during working hours on weekdays. And it is also available at Higginbotham's, where they're open on Sundays as well. So right now the book is being offered at an inaugural discount of 2,200. And I'm also happy to share that all the proceeds of the book are going to 3 charities. One is for the Mahesh Memorial Trust for Pediatric Oncology for children with cancer. Then the second one is to the Mahima Devadoss Foundation, part of the Govill Trust, which is part of the Arvind Eye Hospital for people with vision disabilities. And also to the Saraswati Learning Kendra, part of the C.P. Ramaswamy Iyer Foundation, which is for dyslexic and autistic children. It's for children with different abilities. And I also thank the Chennai Willingdon Corporate Foundation, who sponsored the printing of the book, and then C.P. Ramaswamy Iyer Foundation was able to publish and bring out the book. So we are very honored to be associated with these 2 great organizations who also, have contributed greatly to the heritage of the city. And may I say a big thanks to Mano here for being able to bring this book out. And I do miss Mr. Muthaiya and feel sad that the book saw the light of day after his lifetime. But he did see the mock-up copy, and as Sushi would remember, on our last visit, after we inaugurated a heritage club in one of the schools near his house, we dropped in at his house and he was again talking about the book. So it was very much part of his, sort of memory. So we're very happy that we were able to bring the book out.
But we gave you gave him the mock-up.
Yes.
And he took a photograph of he holding the mock-up.
Yes, he had the mock-up. Of course, we had no idea that he's not going to be with us when the book was released, but we do have a photograph of him holding the book and the mock-up. And thank you so much, Nina and Duchess Club, Anu, Rati, Sujatha Mohapatra, and everybody else who, not Mohapatra, sorry. Yeah, I made her an Odissi dancer. So thank you all so much for having us here. And when we brought the book out, it was 2 years waiting in the wings, and we had no idea we were actually releasing it in August. It was just coincidental, like many other coincidences, that it came out for Madras Day. Thank you for making us part of your Madras Day celebrations. Thank you.
It's an honor for us and a privilege to have Sir with us today. We are so blessed to have you with us today. I'd like to invite Anu to give the vote of thanks.
What a fabulous meeting. It is my privilege to propose a vote of thanks for today's meeting, which has been apt to celebrate the Madras Day. This meeting has not been only informative, but very inspirational too. Thank you so much. Madras, can you all hear me? Madras Inked, Impressions of an Artist and an Architect, is a compelling read. Inked in thought, word and expression. Inked to leave an indelible print in the reader's mind. The unique design of the book, with Manohar Devadoss's intricate drawings and lively anecdotes, alongside Sujatha Shankar's meticulously researched descriptions of history and architecture, creates a vibrant and informative narrative of our city's heritage. Many thanks to both of them for producing such an informative book on our own city, Madras, now called Chennai. Thank you, Manohar sir and Sujatha, for showcasing your book today with the members of the Duchess Club and all our guests. Thank you so much. Our sincere thanks to Sriram V, Krishnan, for taking us through such a delightful, informative, and interesting evening. His vast knowledge in history, culture, and heritage of Madras is immeasurable. And it just shows in every meeting which we've had with you. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. We are grateful to the press and media for being here today, and thank you for covering the same. Thank you to all the guests who have attended the meeting physically and from the virtual platform. Thank you, Kiran and Bala, for handling the technical side of the meeting as always. And of course, I'm sure our Sujatha must have taken a lot of photographs sitting in Calcutta too. Thank you, Sujatha. Our sincere gratitude to the management of Savera Hotel for all the perfect arrangements and for jointly hosting the meeting with the Duchess Club. Thank you so much, everybody, for being with us here today. It was a beautiful celebration of Madras Day. Thank you so much. Everybody could rise.